So this poem was inspired by the French movie La Haine. Alice in Acidland. Yeah, tick, tock, tick, tock, tick, tock, tick, tock. Goes the clock. Time stops. The ball drops. And then bam! You're not in Kansas anymore, Alice. A little blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl sits all alone in a packed bar the day the world ended, staring blankly at the Jack and Coke she's afraid to drink because the caffeine will keep her awake and she can't sleep well anymore. What the fuck good is death if you can't test drive it? And she listens with deaf ears to a mute black Frenchman who tells a word of the story he can't because he never existed. He's not here long enough to use the heart, foot and mouth, tongue, throat, lips, whispering of the 500-pound gorilla sitting in the middle of the room that nobody's talking about. This 500-pound gorilla mashing poor Fluffy the Wonder Poodle. Oh, Fluffy! Let's all pause in a moment of silence and fond remembrance of our dear Fluffy. Silence, silence. Shh. Remembrance, Fluffy. Nah, fuck it. Fluffy's life was used to barter for a product she didn't know existed. She was misled into believing her small bones would cause the gorilla to choke and die. Oh, Fluffy. If you had only known, gorillas are vegetarian. And still, nobody says anything. Oh, they pretend it doesn't exist. That the screams of Uncle Joe being pummeled are just our imagination. And the impenetrable silence left in his wake is just him stepping outside for a smoke. So anyways, there's this not there new black Frenchman telling a wordless story to deaf Alice who sways soberly upon her bar stool. And the story goes like this. A man jumps off a 4-story building. Every story he passes up, he reassures himself by saying, "Ah!" Up to this point, everything's fine. Ah! Up to this point, everything's fine. Ah! Up to this point, everything's fine. The man lives in the moment, for the moment, outside the moment, because at the moment, everything is not fine. Ah! He won't be around to realize it. He's too afraid to look before he screams or raining down upon the brow of a little girl named Alice, choked back a gasp of surprise because her Coke left Jack all alone in a glass, which she drank with a grin because now she can become blissfully unaware of the fact that Jesus fucking Christ. We're all alone. So the mute black Frenchman grabs Alice by the hair and screams with deafening silence, "How did I do it?" And Alice pats the man on his not there back and says, "It doesn't matter, it's all for fun anyways, right?" Which would have infuriated the man had he existed long enough to hear what she had to say. And the gorilla is sniffing poppers and telling other patrons of diners that there's nothing wrong with taking drugs to excessive levels. Just too loud is hairy butts. By this point, the whole bar had gathered around the mute black Frenchman, dancing insanity on a razor blade made of poppy seeds, and though he speaks a wordless tongue, still, nobody gets his drift. It's the world falling down that 40-story building, and society reassures itself by saying, ah! Up to this point, everything's fine. Ah! Jusqu'ici, tout va bien. Ah! Jusqu'ici, tout va bien. Ah! Jusqu'ici, tout va bien. The emperor, he has no clothes. But then again, neither do we. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Happy New Year. Please be sure your crash helmets are securely fastened. You have your seats in the upright position, and you have your head tucked firmly between your knees. Take a deep breath of that nitrous oxide. The plane is going down. Because if you can appreciate the gravity of the situation, you realize this is going to hurt. Thank you.